Welcome to another episode of the Victory Podcast, driven by Audi. I'm your host, Keely Eure, joined by my co-host and former USC quarterback, Cody Kessler. Cody, we're back with the recap episode talking about USC's 29-10 win over crosstown rival UCLA. The Trojans finished 9-3 overall in the regular season. First off, Cody, how are you feeling about this win over the Bruins 24 hours later?
Yeah, it's always great to go out and get a win against your rival, especially at home in the Coliseum. I got to give credit to the fans that were at that game as well. It was loud, they were involved. It was a really cool atmosphere, especially with the slow start from USC. But the fans really picked them up in the second half, which is very important. So that was great to see. And look, it wasn't USC's best performance of the year on either side of the ball, but I was proud of how this team bounced back after a physical and emotional loss last week against Oregon. It's tough to overcome some of those and then go right back at it, a couple days later. But I thought the team responded really well. Rivalry games are always tough, especially when they're at the end of the year. You've had injuries, guys are a little banged up. You're tired. You've got to go out there and just still dominate one last game and put your best foot forward going into bowl season and then going ultimately into the offseason. So I was proud of the seniors, the way they finished this one off the right way, get a win against the Bruins. And really all that matters is they won the game and the victory bell gets to stay home in South Central. And even more importantly, we get to keep it painted cardinal instead of that ugly, ugly baby blue.
Alrighty, Cody, excited to break this one down with you. Before we do, just a couple reminders. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcast. You can also watch the video version of this show on the USC Athletics YouTube channel. If you ever want to ask questions for our preview episode, which now there's going to be a break between our next preview episode. We don't know which bowl game USC is going to go to, so TBD on our schedule between now and the bowl game. But if you want to send us a question for our preview episode, you can follow us on our social media accounts, Victory Pod USC. And I say we're doing a recap pod and we're back. We actually did a recap pod on Sunday, last Sunday, Cody, talking about Oregon. I'll probably put a screenshot up here as proof because we actually recorded it. But then afterwards, I came down with a weird infection. I had to go to the ER. It was this whole thing. So apologies for not being able to edit the recap podcast, not having a preview podcast. That is on me and I apologize. But I will say this, Cody, the line was 1.5 for how many times does Keely get sick in the regular season. And even with a last minute buzzer beater, I'm still under the line. So everyone, please clap because I did it.
Yeah,
well, for once in my life.
I'll give you. I'm just happy you're okay. First of all,
me too.
Most
yes,
importantly,
yes.
That you're good. But yeah, now that I know you're good, I'm going to give you a little bit of a hard time.
Of course, I expect nothing less.
We got the under, but you might have just jinxed yourself because remember there is still a bowl game coming up.
Okay, regular season
got a couple
though.
Weeks to go.
Regular season.
Yeah, all right.
I'm going to take the accomplishments when I can get it.
You know what, Keely? How committed are we, though? What you should have had the laptop in the ER doing the editing.
Look, I had to be persuaded to go to the ER, so we're going to leave it at that. I'm too much of a workaholic.
No, so. I'll give you. You know what? All jokes aside, I will give Keely credit because if it's up to her, she would have been at home editing that podcast. But
gosh, I know.
All jokes aside, glad you're okay. Everyone,
me too.
We're always hoping everybody's okay here at the Victory Pod.
Of course. Well, Cody, let's jump into it. UCLA goes down in the Coliseum. We always start with the offense. Speaking of USC's offensive performance, what do you see on the whole?
Yeah, honestly, I thought for the most part, the offense played really well in this game. I mean, if you don't count the 2 plays before halftime, which counts as a drive, but if you don't count that one and you don't count the kneel downs at the end of the game, which is also another drive, USC's offense realistically should have scored on 6 of their 7 possessions in this game. But unfortunately, 2 of those drives ended in one, a blocked field goal, and then second, a missed field goal by Ryan Sayeri. Now, they could have done a better job in the red zone offensively of finishing in the end zone. So Sayeri doesn't have an opportunity to come out and miss those kicks or have one of them blocked. But I thought they did a good job for the most part of putting drives together. Just got to be a little bit better at finishing there. But if he makes those 2 kicks, we're talking about a 35-10 game instead of 29-10. They have the lead at halftime as well. So a little bit different vibe. But either way, they overcame some adversity early on, found a way to still put up almost 400 yards of offense. They put up 29 points. They dominated really the last drive of the third quarter and the entire fourth quarter of this game, like you should. You got to be able to finish and put games away. I'm just really proud of how this group played as a whole and how they really played this entire season. This offense has been very dominant, for the majority of this year, and they're a big part of the reason that USC's won 9 games.
Well, looking more specifically, Cody, I know we like to start position-wise with the quarterback. What do you see from Jaden Maiava on Saturday?
Yeah, I thought Jaden played really well. He played a clean football game. To start the game without your top 2 receivers and still lead a 10-play, 75-yard drive on your opening possession that finished in the end zone. That was great to see. A big part of that, yes, was the run game, but also the leadership at the quarterback position. He made some big time throws when he needed to in this game, especially in the second half. He was great with his decision making. Had a few throws that I'm sure he'd like to have back, and he put the ball in harm's way, but for the most part, was very smart with his throws, was very smart when he took off and ran, had great ball security. The biggest thing I look at is the zero on the scoreboard, 0 turnovers in this game. That was huge. UCLA didn't turn it over either, but when you have these low scoring games, it's going to come down to, especially early on, who gives the other team extra possessions. And the fact that Jaden Mayava didn't turn it over, or really the offense as a whole protected the football, that was big. But in these low scoring games, especially early on, it is so important to not give the other team extra possessions, especially backed up in your own territory. So although USC only scored 7 in the first half, UCLA only scored 10, the fact that the Trojans protected the football and didn't continuously put their defense in a bad spot helped them separate themselves a little bit in the second half and keep it a low scoring game until the offense got into a rhythm. Credit to the defense as well, and we'll talk about them in a little bit. But that was really important for Jaden. Protect the football, made some big time throws. I thought he did a good job going through progression, taking off and running when he needed to. But that was one of my notes that I still added. And this has been something that I've been talking about all year long for him. He had that really nice 20-yard run or off of the zone read with the end crash down. He made the guy fall and then picked up a big gain when he had his opportunity. But I just would still, going forward, I don't know what his future looks like. I don't know what's going to happen going forward, whether it's here, whether it's the next level, whatever happens. If he is a part of this offense next year, though, a big thing I'd like to see from him this offseason, continue to improve on, just being a little bit more of a factor in the run game. I thought there were opportunities to where he could take off and run on some of those zone read plays, or when the play was breaking down, when he was going through progression where I thought he might have been holding the ball a little bit too long. There were rush lanes and openings to be had to where you can take off and just pick up 5 instead of trying to force a throw or taking a sack or reversing field and doing all these extra things. Just go north and south, get a couple yards, slide, get down, keep the defense honest. Then that forces their linebackers to maybe have to QB spy, or it forces their DBs to come off when you go scramble drill a little bit early, and now that creates some openings in the pass game. So would like to see him be a little bit more of a factor in the run game going forward, I guess, if I'm nitpicking. But like I mentioned, overall, had a clean stat sheet, no turnovers, made some big time throws, had 2 really nice touchdown passes, and did what he needed to do to find a way to win this game.
Mayava was asked about his future in the post-game interview portion of the night, and he said that he hasn't thought about it. He was so focused on prepping for UCLA that he hasn't really talked to his friends or family about what to do next, but we've heard that line a lot. So TBD on what we'll see from Mayava, but just answering your question there, Cody, as far as what we know publicly.
Yeah, that's great context. And look, I'm probably going to say that a couple times throughout this episode, or really these next couple of episodes that we do, because there are some talented seniors that are going to go on to the NFL, but there's also some talented underclassmen that are going to probably have some difficult decisions to make. Jaden Mayava is definitely in that boat. And I say that in a positive way. He has put himself in a great position to go make a lot of money and to go be a talented player at the NFL. I hope that we can keep him, but either way, whatever happens, I wish him nothing but the best in the future. Who knows? Maybe it's one more year in Cardinal and Gold and we get lucky. But either way, he's been really good for this football team. So I'm proud of the way he's developed.
Well, you mentioned, Cody, the slow start for USC's offense, and I feel like you can attribute that to their 2 star wide receivers being out in the first quarter. We didn't exactly know why until we heard from Coach Riley after the game. He said it was due to a violation of team rules. On the whole, Cody, what did you see from Lane and Lemon when they were able to play against UCLA?
Yeah, I'll start with the violation and both of them being out. I didn't love that for them. You never want to see 2 of your best players and 2 of your leaders, on this football team have to miss time because of disciplinary issues. That's never a great sign. But I have to give a lot of credit to Coach Riley for making sure that the standard is the standard. It's something that he set when he got here. It's a culture that he's put in place. It's something that is very important when it comes to the camaraderie of your football team, regardless if it's your starter or a 8-string walk-on. Everyone has to be held to the same standard, and he made an example of those guys and made sure that he held them accountable. That is huge. Now, with that being said, I don't know exactly what happened, but I promise you the type of guys they are and what they mean to this football team, I 100% believe that that's going to get corrected and it won't be an issue going forward. And Coach Riley and obviously Jacoby Lane and Mekhi Lemon handled this behind closed doors. Full respect for all 3 of those guys. I know they're going to get it taken care of and be something that won't be a distraction going forward. But with that being said, I thought they did a good job in this game. They both came back and made an impact in their own way. Throughout this game, Jacoby Lane had 3 catches, 52 yards. And really, in my opinion, if you go back and watch the game or go back and watch the tape, he was a direct cause of the offense finding a spark in the second half. And after he made this catch, they go on 3 straight scoring drives. But if you remember that catch on 3rd and 4 when he took a huge shot to the ribs and held onto the football over the middle. That was big time. That's, you never want to see your star receiver take those hits, but he made that catch instead of the drive being over, which 95% of guys in college, even in the NFL, are not holding on to that football, especially taking a rib shot like that. But he held on to it. The guys got fired up. It got them rallied, got everybody going. And then a couple plays later, USC goes down and scores instead of having to punt the ball away and give UCLA a chance to go extend the lead. So that was a huge play by him. I was excited for him in that moment to make that catch. Now looking at Mekhi Lemon. Mekhi had one catch in this game, and it was a really big one. It was a touchdown, the back shoulder by Jaden. Really good throw, really good catch. That was huge. And I'm glad he got on the board. That helped USC take over and take the lead, and they never looked back. But this, for me, with Mekhi being out, was a little more disappointing. And I know he doesn't care about it, and he won't mention personal stats and personal accomplishments and all of those things. But as a fan and someone that's been supporting him, and I'm sure USC fans feel the same way, I was just bummed that he didn't have the opportunity to have a bigger performance, because everyone, I'm sure, has been aware that he's one of the finalists for the Biletnikoff Award. This was a great opportunity on a national stage against your rival, a week after you played Oregon, where you didn't have the biggest game when it came to receptions and yards. You had 3 touchdowns, 2 receiving, 1 passing, but didn't have, a big statistical game with his receiving yards. I thought this was going to be a great opportunity for him to go out and maybe put up a $150, 10 catches, 2 touchdowns, and just make a statement and put an exclamation point on this season for the voters that are going to vote on the Biletnikoff Award. So him being out early and missing the entire first quarter, that was big when it came to that. But again, like I said, he doesn't care. I'm sure he's more focused on going and winning a bowl game and getting the victory bell and doing all of those things and doing whatever he can to help his team. But I selfishly, and I'm sure I speak for a lot of Trojan fans, wanted him to have a real opportunity to win the Biletnikoff this year. He still can too. I'm not saying it's over. He absolutely can. It's just, how these awards go towards the end of the year. Who makes that last statement, that lasting impact, that final big game to where that's fresh in the mind of the voters. So either way, what he's done for this team this year cannot be expressed enough, just how important he was. It's tough to put into words just what he meant to this team and the plays that he made at the wide receiver position, both him and Jacoby Lane. So although they had the disciplinary issues, it was great for them to both come back and still make an impact in this game. Now, you mentioned, though, some of the other receivers that stepped up. I got to give them some credit, too, because they held it down while Lane and Lemon were out. Tanuk Hines had 3 catches, 31 yards, had that big third down conversion on the opening drive that kept the play alive and kept the drive alive so they can go down and score. Walker Lyons, 3 catches, 22 yards, had some big-time plays. Jaden Richardson, another guy that's been kind of under the radar this year, got an opportunity, 2 catches for 21 yards. And then 2 other guys that had some catches on the night. Riley Wormley had a catch. James Johnson both had a catch. So that was cool to see them get involved. And then finally, the last guy that I want to mention is my guy, one of my favorite Trojans, really the last 5 years, tight end Lake McCree. And it was so cool to see him get a touchdown on senior night. I was so excited for him. I kind of, if anybody watched the Trojan Tailgate show before this game, I was kind of comparing him to another team that I had in Randall Telfer, a guy that had some injuries. And I spent some time with Randall last night too, which was
I was
really
going to say,
cool.
he was there.
Yeah, full circle moment. But Randall Telfer was a guy that stuck through some of the adversity, had stuck through the coaching changes, and had been a staple for our football team. He dealt with some injuries, didn't have the biggest role on the offense, but when we needed him to make an impact, he stepped up for his team and made some big time plays. And I remember going against Notre Dame, the last game of the year, on his senior night, I said, I'm getting you one today, regardless of what happens. I'll even force you to throw. And go look at my last touchdown against Notre Dame. Triple coverage, ran a great route, but there was one spot I could throw it for him. If it was anybody else, I probably wouldn't have forced it. But it being Randall, I forced it to him. And that actually broke the record against Notre Dame for touchdown passes.
That's incredible.
So, really cool memory. And I kind of had a flashback last night watching Lake McCree catch that touchdown, man. He's a staple for this football team. He is a culture builder. He's going to be someone that this team looks back on when they get ready to go on this run, that I know they will. They're going to look back and look at the leaders that set the stage for this team. Lake McCree is going to be at the top of that list. And I will say, I'll finish with this. The best thing he did after he scored, if anybody watched the TV copy, he threw up the 4s down. So he had to let UCLA, had to let them know one more time, because they were doing some fight on downs throughout the week. So, which is the fun part of these rivalry games. But he had to let them know one more time, just put that final touch on that. Yeah, I caught a touchdown on senior night, but it was also against the Bruins, so it makes it that much more special. So I wanted to give Lake McCree one final shout out, give him some credit. It's going to be tough next year doing these preview episodes, these breakdown episodes, and not talking about 87, but I was so happy for him on senior night to make that big time play.
No, I'm glad you gave Lake his flowers because he's definitely someone who deserves it. And I feel like something that also summed up what you're feeling, Cody, was Coach Riley in postgame. He was with Lake McCree and Eric Gentry, and he said it's so surreal sitting next to two guys who I know just played their last game in the Coliseum, given what they've done for the program, how they've helped build it, especially Lake McCree, who was here for the last year of Helton and kind of saw the transition over into the Lincoln Riley era and what they wanted to build. So I'm glad you gave him his flowers. He definitely deserves it. Just a microcosm of just what a great person Lake is. I wanted to interview him post game, and he already had done like a radio interview, and I just wanted to make sure he got his flowers like in the Coliseum of it all. And
Yeah.
I could see he said yes, but I could see there was a little bit like twinge of like, oh, I want to do other post game stuff, and I was like, you know what, go do it. And he was like, are you sure? And I was like, yes, please. So like he was willing to sacrifice some of his last post game celebration to do an interview, but I was like, no, please be free. Go celebrate the last time in the Coliseum as a player. So just a microcosm of what a great guy he is.
Look at you. That's a great call, though. That's a great read by you. Being the team reporter, doing that. All jokes aside, like there's an art to your position as well to let him relish and live in that moment. So I got to give you credit for that as a former
No.
player. No, I'm serious, but that's a big part. And you know, you could tell, and I get the chills just talking about it because we've all been there. For those of us who played football or played any sport, even if it was at the lowest level, even if it was just middle school, or your favorite team in high school, or the seniors leaving in high school, or you get to college or the NFL, there's a final time for that specific team that you're going to lace up the cleats, for one last game. And for those guys, that was that moment. And I could tell when Coach Riley in the post-game press conference, I looked right at Lake McCree when he said it. He said, it hasn't set in for me yet. And I don't even know if these guys have had time to process it yet. And you could really see Lake McCree in real time thinking like, yeah, no, you know what? I'm processing that right now. And I don't want to leave this place. And a lot of us that played at USC don't want to leave that place because it's so special. But, when we talk about people that build up a program and are a part of the school long after they leave, Lake McCree is definitely a part of that. He's fought through injury. He's been the definition of fight on. And at tight end, you don't get as many targets as a wide receiver. You got to do the dirty work as an offensive lineman, but he never complained once. He went out there and made plays for his team week in and week out. So, always grateful to call Lake McCree a Trojan, and he'll be a Trojan for life.
Well, Cody, you said you were excited to break down what King Miller did in this game. So I'm going to give you the runway. Please break it down. The walk-on, which is still so crazy to say, has continued to impress this season. So what did you see on Saturday?
Yeah, we just talked about the old guy, Lake McCree. I'm calling him old in college football terms, but now we're going to talk about the young guy and the future of USC. Yeah, it's been so cool to watch King Miller play football this year. Just another really good performance from him. 17 carries, 124 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then really that 40-yard touchdown at the end of the night just put the exclamation point on this game, put the game away, sent the Bruins home packing. So it's been cool what he's done all year. He sat behind Eli Sanders. He sat behind Wayman Jordan, had a couple carries too. He was still involved in the offense early on. If you remember, he was that third back. Him and Brian Jackson were rotating at that third back position, and King Miller was making some impacts when both Jordan and Sanders got tired. But for him to sit out early in the year and not get a ton of carries and still put up 873 yards and 7 rushing touchdowns in really let's call it 8 games, if you will, to be able to do that and still average 6.7 yards per carry as a freshman walk-on is pretty special. I want people to understand what he's been able to do. There's not a lot of guys in the country that can do that regardless of what team you're on. So it's been very impressive to watch King Miller play football. And I know I sound like a broken record, but I don't care at this point. For the last 3/4 of this season, he has been the MVP. I will say that with even Makai Lemon, with Jacoby Lane, with Jaden Mayava, with the offensive line, the rotation that they've done. I'll talk about those guys in a second because they're my second option for MVP. But for King Miller to be thrown in that spot and step up and make the plays that he has, it's just been really cool. So I'll finish with my King Miller rant by saying, give him a crown. Also, give this man a scholarship.
Yes.
And for anybody listening out there, he better get some really cool NIL deals. He's got first name King. Are you kidding me? Miller too. I know, I don't know how, we're not talking what sponsor will go with Miller because I know what everyone thinks, but you've got some pretty cool NIL opportunities with this man. First name King. Somebody better come knocking on the door and allow him to get some money here. But no, he deserves it. He earned it. I know he doesn't care about any of that stuff. I say that jokingly. All he cares about is putting his body on the line each week and helping his football team win games. So really proud to call him a Trojan. I'm excited about his future. Now, with that being said, there's no King Miller if there's not the 5 guys up front at the offensive line. And I promise you, King would say the same thing. For those guys to have as many injuries as they have this year, to have guys moving positions from guard to tackle, from left to right, going from Killian to Genre to Killian, back to Genre, from Kalon Miller going from right guard to left guard, playing different spots. Elijah Page, you're all everything left tackle, being in and out of the lineup all season. And for these guys to never blink and never complain and never make an excuse and just put their head down week in and week out and trust and believe in Coach Hansen and what he's teaching them and just go to work has been so impressive. So I want to give them credit as a unit. They really were the dominant force in this game last night too. Rightfully so. It was just fitting for them to finish off the season by running the football, letting the offensive line get going and working downhill. They were great with their combo blocks, getting out in space. I love watching Tawanuu and Tobias Raymond, our tackles that are athletes, work up to the second level and play in space. They're just so athletic. They've got a bright future ahead of them. There's going to be some guys, too, at that offensive line that's going to be returning next year. So I'm really excited about their future. And I also got to give credit to one more person, and that's our head coach, Lincoln Riley, who's also our play caller. He did a great job this season with all the injuries that the offensive line had and the running back room, all the different combinations that we had up front with the offensive line. It felt like a different group every single week.
Because it was.
It really was. It
Yeah.
was. But he continuously put guys in position to win over and over. He put together great game plans in the run game. He put together great run game schemes, and he just continued. And it was also an extension of the run game, the quick tosses and the end arounds, and get everybody else involved. It's an art what he does as a play caller. I don't want that to be overlooked as well in all of this. He's a big part of the success that the offensive line, the running backs have done or have had this year. But again, you're not a great play caller if you don't have the great pieces around to go out there and accomplish it. So it's a well-oiled machine, and they've done a good job this year. And it's been really impressive to watch, this run game continue to grow even with the injuries they've had.
What did you think of starting the first drive with eight out of 10 plays, 8 of them were rushes?
Love it. Hey, let's set the tone early. Let's go run the football. We didn't get to do a preview episode, but this UCLA defense was a lot better at stopping the pass this year than they had been against the run. So if we would have done a preview, which you would have heard me say, and one of our keys of the game would have been establish the run game early, get back on track. Against Oregon, the run game was, I don't want to say non-existent, but it wasn't as efficient as it's been this year in some of our wins. So I knew for us to be successful on offense, we had to get the run game going early. Now it helps to lean more on the run, or not helps, but it makes sense, I guess, to lean more on the run when your 2-star receivers are out early on. But again, I was proud of Coach Riley coming out after an off week, running the football, going right back to the ground, putting confidence in the offensive line and putting confidence in King Miller.
Alrighty, Cody, any final thoughts on USC's offensive performance before we switch over to USC's defense?
Yeah, just a couple more notes from me about USC's offensive performance yesterday. The first one, and something that I talk about all the time, was games within the game, right? And one of those, and really the most important, is winning on third down. USC did that yesterday. They were 6 for 9 on third down. You got to be able to extend those drives. You got to eliminate those 3 and outs. You got to be able to help your defense too and keep them off the field so they can get a breather. USC played winning football yesterday on third down. And really, they've done it all season long. The reason that they have 9 wins this year, or a big part of the reason they have 9 wins this year and why they've been one of the best offenses in the entire country, is because they are 5th in college football on third down offense. That is huge. You're going to win a lot of games if you can win on third down. And then my other note, and my final note, and I have to add it because it was so cool to see, was Gage Roy getting a 2-point conversion and then putting him out there in the first place. Coach Riley trusting him, saying, Gage, go get out there. This is your moment. Not only was it cool to see him on the field, but for him to go out there and convert on that one opportunity and go throw it to Walker Lyons for a 2-point conversion. Got to give my man some love. I got to give him credit. That was so cool. Heck of a play, too, by Walker Lyons. Hey, 2-point conversions, you're taught. When we don't throw it away on 2-point conversions and on fourth down, you got to make a play. He rolls out. A little bit of a dirty picture, but he knows that I have a one-on-one matchup with Walker Lyons. I'm going to throw it to where only he can make a play. It's him or nobody. And Walker stepped up, made a play for his guy. And it was just, what a cool moment for Gage Roy. So I want to make sure that we gave him a shout out as well.
I felt like it was really telling, Cody, that it felt like everyone on the field and even the sideline was so excited for Gage. And it's the little things like that it really shows you the team chemistry and stuff like that.
Well, you know what, too? First of all, he was so excited. I think it was Tobias Raymond. He started chest bumping Lyman and knocking him to the ground because he was so excited. And then he ran straight to Walker Lyons, and everyone's bear hugging and jumping around. But you know what Gage Roy is? You know what those walk-on guys are? You know what those guys that don't get a ton of opportunities? You know what we call those guys? We call them glue guys. Those are the guys that week in and week out keep this team together, and they don't get the stats, they don't get the accolades, they don't get their name called on TV, but they're the ones doing the dirty work and scout team. And some, Gage is a quarterback. Obviously, he's not getting hit, or maybe he is. I don't know what he's doing. But these other guys that don't get a ton of opportunities, they're getting hit each week by the defense, and they're getting blocked and double teamed by the offensive line, and they're getting beat on one-on-ones just to give the team a look so they can go out there and be successful on game days and on Saturdays. Those are culture building guys, the walk-ons, the guys that are the unsung heroes. Those are glue guys, like we call them. They keep the team together. They're always positive. They're going to give you what you need at practice. They're also going to be there on game day to help you out. And you could tell too that Gage is an extension of Coach Riley. He's right next to him. He's involved in the signal calling. He has the vest on. He's always involved with the offense. So it was really cool for him to get that moment, especially on senior night. So shout out Gage, and like I mentioned, that's something for him, Keely. 40 years from now, he's going to be telling his grandkids and then their grandkids that, yeah, I threw a 2-point conversion in the Coliseum on senior night against the Bruins, the final point scored for this senior class. So he's going to have that for life, which is pretty cool.
And the theme of the game was for the seniors. So it really, put that message home in that sense. And to your point, Cody, about the glue guys, someone that Coach Riley has talked to you guys about on Trojans Live is Asante Doss. He's also a walk-on. He's a redshirt senior, so I want to give him his flowers as well. Coach Riley has spoken so highly of him and the fact that he's just really shaped the team's culture. Coach Riley said, I would never travel to an away game without Asante Doss, which is saying a lot. Walk-on wide receiver. So just wanted to give him his praise too. He walked on senior night on Saturday, so just wanted to give him his flowers as well.
Yeah, and this is a recap episode. Mind you, we're going to do when the season's over, we'll do a final recap of the entire year, and we'll mention all the guys that are going to be moving on, what their plans are. Not only the seniors that are going to go to the next level, or the juniors that might be leaving, we're also going to give some credit to all those walk-ons and the unsung hero, the glue guys, Keely, like we like to call them, the guys that hold the team together, but they don't get all the stats and the praise.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Cody, because it's hard to not go into big picture talk when talking about like the end of the regular season and stuff like that, and what to extrapolate from this. But we're
still got a bowl game. We're locked in.
One game at a time, recap episode. In that sense, Cody, I want to take us over to USC's defensive performance. Before we do, just want to give thanks to Audi. What you expect from an SUV is a range of sizes to fit your lifestyle. Expectations matter, but exceeding them matters more. The Audi family of SUVs, progress you can feel. And at Ralph's, you can get high quality and low prices so you never have to compromise your budget. Save on thousands of items throughout the store. Ralph's, fresh for everyone. Alrighty, Cody, as promised, when looking at the film, what stood out to you about USC's defensive performance?
Yeah, I thought the defense played really well in this game. They started fast, something that we've been wanting to see from them these last couple of weeks. The offense goes down and scores, and then USC's defense goes out there and against Oregon, against some of these other opponents, they have struggled to play complementary football and force a stop or get a stop. But yesterday, that wasn't the case. USC goes and scores. Our defense comes out, forces a 3-and-out to start the game, and we're playing complementary football. Now, after that opening drive, they did slow up a little bit. They gave up back-to-back 13-play drives by UCLA, one of which finished in the end zone. The other one finished with 3 points right before halftime, which allowed UCLA to take the lead. And, USC had just missed a couple kicks as well. So I'm not going to lie, I was starting to get concerned about this defense because it looked like Nico Iamaleava and this UCLA offense was starting to get into a rhythm, and it felt like they were going to build off of that, and they were having some explosive plays, and that was going to feed into the second half. But really the story of the year for this USC defense is playing great in the second half, buckling down and not making the same mistakes over and over. And they did exactly that against UCLA yesterday. The Bruins had 5 drives in the second half, Keely. They had 0 points. That is winning football. Those drives were punt, 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 and then back-to-back turnover on downs. I always say in crunch time, in these got-to-have-it moments, what do you got to do on defense? Get off the field. They had 2 fourth-down stops to finish the game. And I might be a little bit of I am a Trojan, and it meant a little bit more. But even that last drive, when it felt like UCLA was going to score a meaningless touchdown, I was glued to my TV, just yelling at the defense, do not let them score. Because 29-10 looks a lot better than 29-17. Yeah. Don't give them anything. But the fact that they got a big stop on 4th down there to finish the game was really cool to see. And USC still had some key injuries on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the secondary. And Danton Lynn rotated a lot of guys on defense and wanted to see what he had in some of these younger guys. And in my opinion, they all stepped up. Each of them made some big time plays at different points throughout this game. It wasn't perfect. There's still some areas to improve upon, but I thought it was a really solid performance overall for USC on defense. Held the Bruins only 10 points for the game.
Now, taking a more detailed look, Cody, what do you see from USC's front seven, how they performed?
Yeah, I thought there were some good things on tape. I also thought there were some things that they could have done better on tape. And early in this game, after that first drive, they weren't very disciplined in their rush lanes, meaning that they were giving Nico Iamaleava some opportunities to step up and hurt them with his legs. And it felt like he was bottled up in the backfield, and then guys would go for the sack or maybe try to make the play, and then they would give up a lane for him to take off and run. That's two parts there, is being disciplined with your rush lane, but also making the tackle when you have the opportunity in the backfield and getting that sack. But overall, I thought they did a good job of still getting pressure on Nico throughout the night. They didn't give him anything to work with in the second half. They ended the game with 4 sacks in the night. Two of those, well, 1.5, but I'm giving them two. I know the stat sheet says something different, but I'm giving them two. But 2 sacks by Jade Abasiri. I got to give him credit, man. He's been battling all season long. He's been stepping up. Braylon Shelby had a sack. Some other guys have been playing well. Jaden Walker from that linebacker position. And then the other half sack went to Jakeem Stewart. So even though some of those other guys didn't get home, they still made an impact in this game and led to those other guys making plays in the backfield and getting some sacks. And then in the run game, but with the front seven, I thought they did a lot better job this week than they did last week against Oregon. And I know it's two different teams, and Oregon's a lot better at running the football. But still, when you put the tape on, you want to see those improvements. And I thought they improved with some of their gap integrity. I thought they did a better job at the second level with the linebacker play, attacking downhill, being physical in the backfield, shutting down some of those runs that would have maybe been explosive plays if they don't make that tackle. So overall, I would still like to see a little bit more physicality because I know it's there and I've seen them do it before. They have another opportunity in the bowl game to continue to show that, especially some of these young guys that are going to get their shot, like Desmond Stevens and Jaden Walker. But the ability's there, the athleticism, the physicality is there. It's just being a little bit more committed and trusting yourself. But that's going to continue to come with reps. The more that you see at this level, the better you're going to get. I'm excited about that group and their future. I think they're going to continue to develop under Rob Ryan and Danton Lynn and be able to take that next step going into the next year. But despite a couple explosive runs, like I mentioned, I thought it was still a solid performance from that unit when it came to the run game. UCLA's leading rusher on the night only had 55 yards, and they contained Nico, who was their leading rusher going into that game, really for the majority of the night.
You know, it's funny, Cody, you mentioned kind of rounding up the stats. I always check the final stats right before I go onto the field to do interviews post game. And I saw that I talked to today and I saw that he had 1.5 sacks. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to say 2. It sounds nicer in the interview.
Well, if you watch the tape, hey, Jakeem Stewart's not complaining, though, because he got a half sack. But
Fair.
With that being said, if I'm Jade Abasiri right there, I'm like, hey, man, I did 99% of the work. Jakeem was in a great spot, don't get me wrong, but he kind of just fell on top of Nico after I made the sack. But how the stats work is if you're involved before they go down, then you get half the sack. So they gave it to him. Either way, though, Jade Abasiri, what a game from him. That was really cool to see, getting some pressure from the inside. And, obviously that's going to help him, as he goes forward and build that confidence.
Well, unfortunately, Cody, a story of the second half of the season for USC is its secondary being a little bit banged up. We saw that again on Saturday. A lot of faces coming in and out. I know Marcellus Williams and both DeCarlos Nicholson got banged up at certain points in the game. What did you see from the secondary as a whole?
Yeah, I was proud of this group overall because of what you mentioned. The fact that, they had these injuries and they've had adversity and they've had to play a lot of guys in that unit and they still have held their own throughout the majority of this year. I was proud of that group and I thought they played well last night. They did give up a couple big completions, especially early on in this game on those couple drives, and then they gave up a 3rd and 21 at the end of the game. Can't let that happen. That's unacceptable, but that's something that you can learn from. But overall, they held Nico, who is a really good passer. I know we talk a lot about his legs, but he can throw the ball well if you give him time in the pocket. But they held him to only 200 yards passing, and more importantly, only 5.3 yards per completion. That means that they were keeping everything in front. They were coming up and making tackles. They weren't giving up home run plays over the top. That was obviously shown in the score by them only putting up 10 points. That's a really good job from a depleted secondary that it would have been easy for them to make some excuses and have some of these younger guys give up some big-time plays. This is the second straight week that they were without Kamari Ramsey and Bishop Fitzgerald, but guys just continue to step up, especially some of the young guys. They made some really nice plays. Christian Pierce, I thought, did a good job, had 5 tackles on the game. He's been solid really this entire year. I know DeCarlos Nicholson got hurt and was in and out of the lineup, but I got to give him credit too. He's been a staple for this secondary on the back end and been a leader for this group, regardless of who's been corner next to him, whether it's Marcellus Williams or Braylon Conley coming in, DJ Harvey. Other guys have played, but Nicholson has been the staple for that unit. So I'm proud of him and what he's been able to accomplish this year. But speaking of some of the young guys, I got to give them credit. And I know, again, we're not talking about the offseason episode, but it's the last game of the year, so I can't help it. And they got opportunities in this game. But the first one for me is Kennedy Urlacher. He had 5 tackles on the night. And was he perfect in coverage? No. I think that's where he's going to be able to really improve this offseason is playing some of those man-to-man situations, playing on number 3, had an out route caught against him, had a couple other plays where he's in man-to-man where didn't quite make the play and coverage was still a little bit too far off with his cushion, but that comes with reps. Remember, he's only a sophomore. He's going to learn. You've got to get thrown in the fire so that you can learn in real time. Nothing is more valuable than game reps. It's tough to replicate that at practice. So you're going to have to learn from some of those mistakes. But overall, I love his physicality. That comes with the name, obviously, and who his dad is. But he plays, fearless. He plays with this downhill mindset at safety to where I'm going to come up and make the big play. Had a couple missed tackles or really one that was significant to hurt the team. But that just is going to come with, okay, yeah, I can be physical, but let's break down a little bit. Let's make sure that we make the tackle first, before the big hit. But either way, I'm excited about his future. He's only going to get better as time goes on. And then another guy that really stood out to me in this game was Alex Graham.
Yeah.
I know you talked about him a lot all offseason, Keely. I hadn't seen him yet. And everybody that I heard from USC fans and Twitter were excited about this young man. And I wanted to see it in person first, and I stayed for that game. He led the team with 7 tackles. He had a tackle for loss. He's only a freshman. He had dealt with injuries throughout this year and has finally gotten some opportunities and gotten some reps. I am so happy that he's gotten to play in some of these games going forward, because I promise you, he is going to be a big part of this defense in the future. The skill set is there, the athleticism there, really good instincts too with some of those tackles and being around the football. So I think he's going to be a big part of this defense going forward. I'm glad he got those reps. He's also going to get some in the bowl game too, which will be cool to watch. And then another guy that I briefly mentioned already is Marcellus Williams. He's been solid for this defense all season long. He's been put in a really tough position. He rotated early on with some of the other corners, trying to solidify that spot across from DeCarlos Nicholson, but he took over and got an opportunity, and he really never looked back. So, it's a tough spot to be thrown into. I always say that corner outside of quarterback is really the toughest position on the field. You've got a receiver that knows what he's doing, running full speed at you, who's extremely talented, and you've got to backpedal and still try to cover them without getting penalties. It's really tough. That's why it's rare to find really good corners at college and in the NFL. It's tough when you have to play a lot of guys because of injuries, but there's also a benefit to it when it comes to the future of your program. And I think that's something that, is important to look at when we look at big picture of this football team. But again, this is a young group that's only going to get better the more time that they get in this scheme. And like I mentioned, there's a lot of talent on the back end for USC in this defense.
In that sense, Cody, I feel like in the Friday Zoom call we had with Coach Riley, he was kind of speaking to the same thing. And I feel like the subtext of what he didn't say was that, there are growing pains with playing younger players, whether it's due to injury or because that's the guy you want to start. There are going to be growing pains. And I think Coach Lynn talked about it this past week as well. But ultimately, like long term, the ROI should pay off in the sense that you have guys who've been in your scheme, been in your system from a young age, and are not just hey, we got a stopgap in the portal who's going to be here one and done, So it seems like from what they're shaping up the roster, both Bowden and Coach Riley, like it seems like this is going to pay off eventually at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw it in real time this year, specifically the defensive line. If you remember last season, there were a lot of injuries up front with that group, and Jade Abasiri and Devin Tompkins and Cameron Crawford got thrown into the fire. And I promise you, they don't play as well as they did this year if they didn't have that experience to lean back on last year. It kind of fast forward their progress and their development. So even though there's going to be growing pains with young players in these moments and getting thrown out there, maybe before they're 100% or they're comfortable in this scheme and playing at this high level college football, it's going to help them so much in the future. And another opportunity too, why I'm so excited. I know, the playoffs and all of that is where you want this team to be. And in Big Ten championships, I have full faith that we're absolutely going in the right direction. But right now, we're still going to get a high level bowl game. And these young guys are going to get a huge opportunity to go out there and play. And it feels like every year, since the NIL era and the transfer portal, there's a hero that just emerges in these bowl games and makes some big time plays. So I'm excited to see which young guy it's going to be this year. But yeah, it's going to be another teaching moment for them and some great things that they can put on tape and learn from going forward. So I'm excited about the young group that USC has on this roster.
Alrighty, Cody, it's crazy. Game 12 is in the books. Now it's just the bowl game to preview and wrap up this 2025 season. It's crazy. We always talk about how fast it goes, and I know it's probably a broken record, but it really does feel fast when you're covering college football. But any final thoughts, Cody, before we wrap this one up?
Yeah, last thing I'll say is I'm so proud of this football team from where they started this year to where they are now. The adversity they faced, the injuries they've had, the highs, the lows. They never complained one time. They just went out there week in and week out and really showed that fight on mentality and that fight on spirit. And being a former player just makes me so proud to call myself a Trojan. I'm sure Trojan fans around the country feel the same way, really around the world. They're always rooting for this football team. And I'm just so excited about the future of this program and where they are going right now. And you know, how they can continue to build off of these last couple of seasons under Lincoln Riley, take that next step this offseason, really in the bowl game and then going into the offseason. And I can't wait for 2026. That's just where I know we're not even done with this year, Keely, but I get so excited. I hate when Trojan football is
we're
gone.
close. We're close.
It's a bittersweet moment because, you
I know.
get to see the seniors get one last opportunity. You win, the victory bell, you get a bowl game, but then we got to wait 8 months before USC football is back again. So
I know.
With that being said, thank you guys all so much for always tuning in, for watching our show. This show doesn't go if it's not for you guys. Love you guys. Fight on. Again, we're going to do some more offseason episodes as well. We've got, signing day coming up. We got the bowl game coming up. So we don't know quite when that next episode will be, but stay tuned on our socials. Keely will obviously announce it. Barring we don't hit the over, Keely, with you getting sick.
Don't put that on me. Don't put that bad juju on me, Cody Kessler.
Or me having to
being a superstar diva with your.
All right, wrap us up. We're done. Right on. People are probably already clicked off. At this point,
such a great point.
We love you guys. You guys are so awesome.
Yes, as Cody said, thank you so much for all the support all year long. You know how much we love you. Also, like Cody said, we're still hammering out our final, couple episodes for 2025. We still have signing day for you to do, so stay tuned for that. But that's going to wrap it up for our Game 12 recap episode. USC beats UCLA. I'm taking us home, Cody. This is time to wrap up. It's going to wrap us up.
No one's listening anymore.
Anyway. I know. Thanks for not clicking out early so you didn't hear this. That's Cody. With this helmet, I'm Keely. We'll see y'all next time.